Hello and welcome. Today's speaker is Sara Ross. She's a keynote speaker, researcher, and chief vitality officer of BrainAMPED, a leadership strategy and coaching firm dedicated to redefining how we succeed at work and thrive in life. Sara is earning a reputation as a fresh and thought-provoking voice in the future of work discussions as she and her company provide brain-based tools to decrease stress and exhaustion and increase leadership vitality by strengthening the skills of energy management, emotional intelligence, and resilience. Some of Sara's clients include Microsoft, United Health Group, Sprint, Rogers, Allstate, New York Life, Adobe, TD Bank, and as diversely as the leadership team of NBA's Orlando Magic. Prior to founding BrainAMPED, Sara served as Vice President of Global Head of Leadership Innovation, Research and Training at a leadership development company focused on the neuroscience of emotional intelligence and performance. There, she led the development and delivery of award-winning leadership programs, assessments, coaching, and accreditation programs. Today, she'll be talking about redefining success in the midst of crisis. Please welcome Sara Ross.
Hi there, I'm Sara Ross, and I'm the founder of the leadership strategy and research firm BrainAMPED. What I want to do today is share some new data. So this isn't what I usually talk about, and this isn't fleshed out, but I think that it is something that is impacting more people right now than it has ever before. And so the topic that I want to talk about is this idea of how are we going to measure success in the midst of COVID-19. I, like everyone else, is impacted by this pandemic. And the reality is that how we have measured success previously isn't applicable now. Right? Like, so for many of us, maybe we have been measuring success by the growth of our business, by the certain sales targets and product launches, by social media likes, by our ability to get on stage and talk to different audiences, which is one of the ways that I would have measured success. But I am not on stages. I am sitting here in this chair. And so whether you are a large business or small business owner, whether you're just getting things started out from an entrepreneurial perspective, whether you're a one-person show and a solopreneur, all change is personal because all change hits us at an emotional level. And one of the first levels that it hits is it hits us to our core and our perception of self. And so when I study leaders, what I'm finding right now is so many are going through this thing that we call an identity quake. Now, the term identity quake was coined by Doug Stone and Sheila Heen. They were the authors of the book, Difficult Conversations. And an identity quake occurs in any conversation when we feel that our competence, when we feel that our worthiness, when we feel that the relationships and the safety and the successful outcome, when anything is at risk and makes us question ourselves. Now, with COVID-19, many of our business outcomes are no longer possible. Products that were in mid-development are no longer going to be launched. Sales targets that we were tracking so powerfully towards may not be possible anymore. That growth that perhaps some of you have been experiencing year over year isn't a possibility. And what that ends up doing is creating an environment that shakes, disrupts, or dismantles our perception of self. And so when we feel like the ground has been kind of taken out from below us, we start to respond in ways that are less than effective. And what I'm finding in the data is that those that are really experiencing these identity quakes tend to be the people who fit into the category of high achievers, fit into the category of successful, fit into the category of exceptional leaders. And so there's a couple of places that really put us at risk. And what I want to do is I want to share a strategy. In fact, 5 specific things that you can do based on a model. But in order to do that, I think it's important for you to be able to recognize where and how this is impacting you most. So see if any of these sound familiar. Some of the people that it seems to be most at risk of this identity quake are people who have inadvertently tangled up their work and their worth. right? They've created this environment that as long as they're successful, then that's a representation of them, that they as a person are a successful person. For some of us, we've kind of fallen inadvertently into this trap by defining our success by external outcomes. So this is meeting sales targets, number of social media likes. This, in fact, I was just speaking to somebody and I thought she was a leader of an organization and she said something so interesting. She said, pre-COVID-19, all I wanted to do was for the world to go on pause for me to stop getting emails. I was so busy. When anybody asked me how things were going, my response was, they're so busy. Be careful what you wish for, because all of a sudden with the introduction of a worldwide pandemic, my email is not full. And this lack of email made her feel like she wasn't necessary, that she didn't have value to add. So exactly the thing that we have probably resisted may also be the thing that gives us a sense of worthiness. And I think the other one that, because for so many of us, myself included, we love what we do, we end up combining what we do with who we are, right? And this may be as simple as we get tied up in the title of what we do, the business that we are in, the company that we work for, the way we define what our success is. When we're in any of these situations and the environment that we have been able to work with to be successful is disrupted, we're at risk of an identity quake. And in order to kind of put a strategy in place, I think it's really important to slow down and see where we are. And so take a minute, see if you fit into any of these categories. And I just want to say, all of these, you're going to see 3 X's and 1 check mark. I'm regretting using those symbols right now because it would imply that each of these responses are wrong. Each of these responses are completely natural. All emotions are okay. I spent a lot of time studying emotional intelligence and helping leaders increase their emotional intelligence. And one of the things that I'm so critical of is when people look at emotions as bad. I'm trying to help people see that all emotions are okay, but all responses are not necessarily helpful. Experiencing the emotion is one thing. Getting stuck in the emotion is another. So if you've experienced one of these, great. If you're feeling stuck in one of these, then even being able to identify it will help shift it. But I'm going to offer a strategy in a moment. So let's start here. Very naturally, if I said that this is at an emotional level, we know from a brain perspective, we all know that our emotional system is responsible for our fight, flight, and freeze reactions. Those are the typical reactions. And how this might look in the middle of a pandemic or any time that our environment has changed is, for some of us, the initial response at least may have been one of freeze. And this is one that if we get stuck in this for too long, this really impacts our ability to get things done, our ability to adapt, but it also has a very, very contagious element and it affects the people around us. So a freeze response is when we end up feeling helpless, overwhelmed, and paralyzed by the environment. Now, many people, when this started, they may have actually started there, and that's okay. So the first one is freeze. The second one that I think I am seeing in some of the leaders I have the opportunity to work with, and I suspect this may be one that I have fallen into on a number of different days, depending on what the news has to say or the messages that are coming into my email. The second one is sometimes we avoid, but we actively avoid, right? This is where we kind of deny how bad this is going to be. We try to hold on to the old ways. It's like, I'm just going to keep doing what I've always done, and that should be okay to ride this out. So we're avoiding kind of really recognizing the impact and implications of this situation. And then this third one This third one's deceiving. This third one's deceiving because it can camouflage itself as effectiveness. But this third one is what I call destructively approaching. Kind of think of the first one, a freeze, as a deer in headlights, right? When we're actively avoiding, that's that ostrich head in the sand. Destructively approaching, imagine a Tasmanian devil. It's like something has happened, and instead of just kind of taking a moment, we start spinning in action. Let's fix things. It's kind of unfocused and it's reactive. We're changing our goals on a day-by-day or even hour-to-hour basis. So we're busy, we're doing a lot of things, but we're not necessarily doing strategic things and effective things, which takes us to the last response. And this is the place where we all want to get to. And this is where we intentionally lead ourselves and others through this situation of uncertainty. And what that means is we ground ourselves in our purpose. We tap into our strategies and we remain flexible. Now this is such an easy thing to talk about in theory, but in reality, with all of the things, like it's not only the fact that for some of us, we don't feel successful. For some of us, we have actually lost the title that we had. We've actually been laid off. Some people are needing to close businesses and completely change the work that they were doing. So each of these are completely natural. But if we want to actually reset ourselves and ground ourselves in a definition of success with an identity that we can count on, that is sustainable and that is resilient through this, there's some very specific things that we can do to move ourselves towards that. And that's the strategy that I want to use. And so the term lead ourselves through those moments is actually an acronym that I would like to use. And the purpose of this is to kind of help reset our expectations of a situation and tap into the resources that each and every one of us has available to us to shift our mindset to a more productive place. And so here's what the acronym stands for. Lead. L, shift into a learning mindset. Build on our experiences, ground ourselves in acceptance, and add on to the dimensions of how we define success. And so I'm going to take us through each one. And I'm going to share a question that we can ask ourselves to help reset expectations. Now, there's power in questions, not just in the fact that they make us think, but when we are in a crisis situation, when there's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns, it's very natural for our emotions to kick in. That means our emotional system kicks in. One of the best ways to re-engage this prefrontal cortex, this part of our brain that keeps us connected to big picture, keeps us connected to our values and our mission and our goals, that keeps us connected to the strategic way to approach things, is by asking questions and forcing ourselves to think through those. So let's start with learning. This idea of shifting into a learning mindset. How can we see this situation as an opportunity to learn and explore and reflect? Now, for anyone who has looked at resilience, one of the key defining factors of someone that is more resilient in the face of challenge is that they are able to see the situation as a challenge to take on versus a crisis that has been imposed on them. But shifting into this idea of learning is powerful because now we get to reflect, now we get to explore and experiment with things. And I'll say, I don't think there's ever been a better time for us to actually start exploring and experimenting with different approaches. Now, here's the challenge with learning. The challenge with being in a learning mindset is sometimes we also look out to learn. And what we end up doing is looking out to see what other people are doing. Now, if we can look at what other people are doing and appreciate and learn from that, more power to you. But probably what's more natural for some of us is to look out to see what other people are doing and then compare ourselves to them. And most of the time, our comparisons are not, oh, good, look at how great we're doing. And if we do, it's probably a way to make ourselves feel better. But more often than not, our comparison is us looking out and looking for all the things that we don't have in comparison to other people. All of the skills, all of the opportunities, all of the you name it that somebody else has that we don't have. And I think this is really important. So one of the things as we are looking to redefine what success means to us, to how we are going to measure it, means that we look at this from a personal perspective. Nobody's going through this the same way. Nobody's learning is going to be equal. Nobody's going to come out of this net neutral. We're going to come out of this stronger or smaller. And so it's really important for you to define what's most important for you to gain from this set of experiences. For some of us, this might mean that we are speeding up. We kind of come to market with something more quickly. Perhaps in the world of what I do, I know that I had been planning on building a online course. Well, this is a great time to speed up the production of that because I'm not getting on planes and doing all these other things. But for other people who have been in this kind of nonstop go mode, maybe this is the opportunity to actually slow down, to catch your breath. Maybe this is the opportunity to solve a new problem, but on the other side, maybe it's the time to start asking some different questions. Maybe we're so clear on what our purpose is that we are in execution mode, right? But maybe some of us are saying that we've lost that why. We've lost that roadmap and that purpose. So it's a time to step back and reflect on that. Maybe for some of us, it's really important to redefine our work ethic. And yet I know there are some of you out there who are looking at this and saying, it's not about how much work I do, it's about how effectively I rest. So I don't want you to compare yourself to anyone else. I want you to take the opportunity to say, how do we pull the most amount of learning from this that's going to serve us in the future? And when we do that, when we're in a learning mindset, we don't have to go, it's not net new. We don't have to go at this all alone. The next opportunity is to build on our experiences. What are the previous experiences? Whether the outcome was what we wanted or not, that we can pull on to serve as strengths now, to help us endure this, to help us get through this and get stronger throughout this. And this is one that for me is a very, very personal one. My business is quite new. It's about 2 years old. So there's many people who came to me as this was all going on. They said, like, are you okay? And don't get me wrong. I am absolutely disappointed. I am sad. There is traction and momentum and things that we're moving forward in a really powerful way. But one of the things that I feel really confident in is I'm in a place where I can handle the unknown much more than I would have been able to a few years ago. And this is specifically because one of the hardest experiences of my life is serving my learning now. In 2016, my mom passed away of breast cancer. It was the second occurrence of this breast cancer. And when it came back on a mission. It spread to her lungs, her liver, and her bones. And when we got this news, my first reaction was to try to figure out how long she would be with us. Now, I know even as you're listening to this story, you're probably thinking like, why would you put energy and focus into that when you've got the opportunity to spend time with your mom? I know, I agree. That's such a logical response. But when the rug gets pulled out from under us, when we get news that we didn't expect, when our entire business model changes in a matter of days, we don't respond logic first, we respond emotion first. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but what I tried to do was I tried to figure out the answers. I went into researcher mode and I read medical journals. I made the biggest mistake of Googling and trying to figure it out from Google searches. I reached out to doctors and shared my mom's scans, and I kept challenging and pushing people to just give me an idea of how long my mom would be with us. It almost broke me. And I remember somebody very kindly saying to me, for all the time you are looking for answers that no one can give you, it's taking away from the time that you have with your mom. Completely logical answer. But that simple kind of reframe for me helped me recognize that I was going to need to make decisions with incomplete information. There was no way for me to know if I was making the best decision. I had to trust that I was making the best decision with me, for me, with the information that was available for me. Let me start that over again. I was making the best decisions for me with the information that was available to me in that moment. Even when I'm talking about it, I can feel the emotion coming on in this place because I'm still not even sure we made all the best decisions. But what I am confident in is that I am far more able to sit in uncertainty now than I ever was before. And if I have one of those experiences, I can guarantee you also have those experiences. So this is your chance to really tap into these as we go through. We've been training for this. Like, you are so much stronger than perhaps you even give yourself credit for. So I want you to, as you finish this, I want you to actually go through and think about what are the strengths that you have been building? What's the wisdom that you have been cultivating through all of the difficulty that you've gone through in your entire life? Use that now. That allows us to ground ourselves in acceptance. And I actually think this is one of the components that is most difficult. What are the realities, the emotions, the facts that if you were to stop fighting would actually allow you to adapt to this more effectively? This one can be a trigger for people because sometimes when they hear the word acceptance, they feel that it means giving up. And it is anything but. When we're in a place where we are fighting reality, we put a tremendous amount of energy into the things that we can't control. But when we're willing to just accept what is happening, we use that acceptance as a ground to push forward from. And one of the best strategies that I've heard and that I continuously use, and of course that I used to help me deal with the uncertainty when my mom was sick, is to stop getting caught up in all the what ifs and shift into recognizing what is. I'm not going to say that it's not important to consider what ifs. It may help us make decisions. But if we spin there and we fight that and we wish it were different and we think about what should be happening right now, we lose the opportunity to recognize what is right now. And when we do that, we can be more effective. There's a quote I captured right here. It's William James, who was a psychologist. Actually, he was considered the kind of grandfather of American psychology. And he says, acceptance is what happens as the first step to overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. Which means when we actually accept what's happening, that's when we can rebuild. So I challenge you to think about, what are you fighting? And what do you need to accept to use as your foundation to build from? And when we do those, that all comes to this last piece, which is really where we started. But now we've got the resources. Now we've got the tools to allow us to do this a little bit more effectively. And this last piece is add to the dimensions of how we define success. So what additional dimensions can you add to that definition of success? And so this may be simple ways. One of the things that I have done, that I'm working with many clients of, who are saying, like, my traditional business model, our mission isn't relevant right now. Okay. What a great place to land from a place of acceptance. But you've been in situations that have been disruptive before. And this is a great opportunity to experiment. So if we take all of those pieces, for me, I have slightly transitioned my mission statement, my kind of value add, how I look at success right now, as helping people recognize that they don't have to just get through this, that they actually can get stronger because of this. I want to help people build wisdom and confidence as a reaction to and a response to this pandemic, instead of getting overwhelmed in doubt and fear and cynicism, which can very, very easily happen. Adding dimensions, maybe instead of just looking at what it means to be successful, considering other elements. What does it mean to add a health factor on to this? For me, one of the big things is that I really am committed. A definition of success is making sure that the people who deserve the best of me get the best of me. They don't get the leftover me. It's how many Friday nights am I at home to be with my family for the weekend. We can add on to what it means to be successful. And another opportunity is to let go of the outcome, right? So if it can't be business growth, if it can't be products launched, if it isn't any of those things, shift from outcome and focus on your inputs. How do you want people to feel when they engage with you? For me, one of the big pieces is building those relationships right now. How many people have I been able to reconnect with and share something of value and service? So adjusting that statement of what service we're offering and focusing on the input of our actions, the inputs that create our impact, is a powerful way to counter that identity quake. And the last one, this last one is such an opportunity no matter where we are in our lives. This is our opportunity to separate what we do from who we are. I am very, very conscious not to say I am a keynote speaker. What I focus on is I deliver keynotes. I also do research. I also coach. I'm also a wife and a friend. I'm also somebody who contributes to the community that I live in. This idea of separating these two is incredibly powerful. In fact, one of a great example of it is Simon Sinek. I love that he always says he defines himself by his values. He's an unshakable optimist who also writes books, delivers keynotes, and does all of the amazing things that he does. So think about, what is a core characteristic that defines you? For me, I always say that I am insatiably curious. I am always looking to better understand why we do what we do and why we don't do the things that we know we should. That, no matter what my job is, no matter what is going on in the economy, no matter how successful and relevant, unsuccessful and irrelevant I am, that is who I am. So when you leave here, I want you to write out, what is your favorite value and character trait of who you are? And then write down all of the things that you do. Most of the time, in people that I have been working with, I keep hearing this idea of, this is our do-over moment. Like, this is such a good reset. I fully agree that this is such a powerful reset. But I do not believe that we should look at this as a do-over moment. I genuinely believe this is our opportunity to do better in the future, to build from our experiences and our learnings and everything that this COVID-19 experience has to offer us. So, good luck. Stay strong. You are far more resilient than you realize you are. You are far more creative than you ever knew you are. And you are far more adaptable than you believe that you can be. Now is an opportunity to go and try it all out. So thank you. I appreciate this time you spent with me. If you're interested in an identity audit and any additional questions to help you take yourself through this lead mindset, if you're a business owner and you're thinking, this is helpful for me, it's just as helpful to take your people through it as well. So you can send me an email to sarah@sarahjross.com. Just put audit in the subject line. I will send you those documents. You're not going to get signed up for anything else. In the meantime, thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and good luck as you go through this.